Okay. All right. So this is Karissa Patterson Martinez from Be Free and CarissaMarie.com. And we know Be Free is all about encouraging, empowering, and enlightening uh, everyone, ladies especially. So I am so excited today. All right. Like I can't explain to you how it seems like 2 weeks was like dragging. It felt like a whole month to wait for this day. And I'm a little excited and I'm a little nervous too, but I'm more excited because this is a friend from way back long ago, Stacia Gowens. We went to high school together, and I'm going to let her introduce Sandra and Tasha. But Stacia, first tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. Okay. So, hello, everybody. I'm Stacia Gowens, and I live in Dallas, Texas right now, but I'm originally from Michigan, which is where Karissa and I met in high school. We were both in the, all famed fashion show together. So we have some old stories to tell about that. But originally from Lansing, Michigan, went to Michigan State University, both for my bachelor's and my master's in marketing. I have two kids, although they're adult-ish. So Christopher is 23, Alexa is 21 and graduating from college in a few weeks. And I have been married to my wonderful husband, Ed, for almost 25 years, very close to 25 years. And I will introduce my two amazing friends that are on this call. So Tasha Robinson White will introduce herself, but I've known Tasha since third grade. So
Oh, wow.
we have been rocking with each other for quite some time and still are thick as thieves. And then Chandria, I met when I moved to Indianapolis years and years ago. Our husbands are kind of BFFs. They actually used to get mistaken for each other when we all worked for Eli Lilly and Company. So I'll let those two introduce themselves.
Well, you go ahead, Tasha.
Okay, I'm Tasha Robinson White, and as Stacia mentioned, and Karissa. I went to high school with Stacia and Karissa, of course, going all the way back with third grade. Stacia, you're putting some age on us, but it's all good. Currently, I reside in Las Vegas, and I am a business owner. Vanguardian Global is the name of my company. I am also an author, and I'm really excited to be here. I love to see our people, especially our school people, like get together and like help magnify each other and like I just love this. I love doing this type of stuff, and I'm really happy to be here. And Karissa, tell Michael I said hey.
I will,
because Michael used to sleep on my couch in Atlanta.
He loves you. He's not busy kind of doing my job. I would get him up here.
Awesome.
But before we leave, when we're done, stick around because he wants to see you. Okay.
Awesome. And Chandria, I feel like I know you already just from various stories. And our husbands are like, they're clicking. Like, after seeing that other podcast, I was like, oh no, we got to come back.
We do. And we got to plan a trip together too. So awesome. I'm Chandria Seaton, and let's see, I've been married now this is year 18 for us. I'm born and raised in Macon, Georgia. Went to school at Florida A&M University, which is where I met my husband. So yes, Rattlers, and just amazing. So and Stacia, yes, our husbands are, they are like BFFs. And it's funny that you mentioned that they were mistaken often. I was like, man, do we all look alike? So I'm excited to be here. A little bit about me. I am a IT global project manager for a local pharmaceutical company here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I think that's pretty much it for right now. We'll see.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies. And I'm so excited to have you join us. So let's just really jump right into it. So, yes, I have it on both devices. I have it on, I have on this because I multitask. I was out working in the yard, and when I take a break, I'll, relax in my chair. And so I have this. Anyway, I've got a logic to the madness. So the crazy thing is, when I read it, there's so much similarities and so many, of course, so many differences that I can relate to in that. And then you, with the fact that you guys moved around a lot and had to start all over, like I can relate to being a military wife, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And how you handle that and how it can cause a little drawback. And how your spouse in for us, it was, I felt like I was following him. But
Right.
as I read the book, it was like the reverse for you guys.
Right.
So
Right.
what made you decide to be so honest and write this book? First of
Ah, I, I love that question because my first reaction is God made us do it.
Mm.
Because if you've read the book, obviously you know that there's a lot of juicy details in there. There's a lot of vulnerability in there, and we really felt like if we were brave enough to tell this story, and it took a couple, fits and starts and us pushing each other to do it. But if we did it, that maybe we could help somebody else.
all.
Maybe other people wouldn't feel like they were alone, or whatever they were going through was something to be ashamed of. And so getting over that hump, I think was just absolutely huge for us. And we've talked about doing it for years. Um, the kids were still at home, so you kind of create excuses. Oh, we've got to do this. We've got to run to the track meet. We've got to go to the basketball game, and then COVID hit. Right,
Mm-hmm.
kids are gone. You got nothing but time, and we said, let's do it. And I think the hardest part was just saying, okay, if we do this, um, there's a lot of people we're gonna have to tell first. Um, and that for us, the kid telling our children was probably the scariest.
Yeah.
And we can talk in a little bit about it, but it definitely, we build up in our minds these big bad boogeymen and these terrible things that are going to happen, and half the time it's only in our mind. And so through writing this book, we really learned just trust God. When he tells you to do something, he's equipped you to do it. He's not going to let you fall on your face doing it. And so we were just obedient.
Something that you mentioned, and I've heard you say in other talks, where you were nervous about telling your family,
Yeah,
and friends, and your children, of course.
hmm
But as I read the book, I don't know if you got this because you were in the middle of it. But as
right,
I read the book, I was thinking to myself, who is she afraid of? She has such a strong support system of unbiased people who are not going to judge her, who love
right.
her. I thought about that after when I finished the book. I thought, what the heck? She's got an awesome support system. So it is really because we have so many high expectations for ourselves,
Yeah,
probably. And
yeah,
that's what probably made you feel that way. But as I read the book, I thought she's got a nice group of people surrounding
yes,
her. And I know
yes.
I know you well enough to know that you raised some good kids. You know what I'm saying? I
Did.
just
I
just
did.
just basically. So I just can see that, I'm happy for you. But here's a question. We touched on this briefly before. We think we know how to do things, but there was really no blueprint on how to do things. Like I don't know
Mm-mm.
about
No,
you, but like my parents, they're old school. They're still married, but I saw some ups and downs. Okay, but
right.
they still managed to do it. But no one sat us down and said, "Baby, do this. Don't do that." And they were very secretive about things,
Mm-hmm.
good and
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. I
And
agree.
you know what I'm saying? So, how did you have that same experience, or did you have anyone
Oof.
you look to?
So I'd love to hear Tasha and Chandra here too, because for I think we're all gonna have very different experiences. In my marriage or in my relationship, my parents were divorced when I was 12. My husband's parents were never married. So even before we got married, like we would have these conversations about, oh crap, man, we don't really have good marriage role models.
Mm-hmm.
And for the people in our families that were still married, much like you just said, Karissa, it was like, don't ask, don't tell. They certainly don't tell you what
Yeah.
it takes to stay successfully married. And so, no, I don't feel like we did have roadmaps. And what's more, I think and this is where I say I definitely want to hear from Tasha and Shay, because we're also very strong, smart, independent, could do this on our own if we needed to kind of women. And so when you encounter something like infidelity, your first thought is, I don't gotta take this crap. You know, why would I want to stay in a relationship like this? Like my mother used to say to me all the time, men are like buses, one comes every 10 minutes, right? So all I got to do is wait. Like, dude, if you don't want this, you can go. And so I didn't really have a role model to help me through, like, how do I stay after infidelity? Because there was infidelity in my parents' marriage, but obviously they got divorced, right? So it's really difficult. And that's why I think it's really important that you, if you can, find peers of yours that have relationships that you can be open and honest with them. And Tasha will tell you, out of the very, very, very few people who knew anything about this before this book, she knew everything, right? From top to bottom, front to back. She rode with me since the very beginning. But it is important to have a friend like her, because as I was going through these things, I mean, you know, yes, she is my friend, but she's going to keep it real with me too. And so I think it's really important to try to find peer models. I don't know, Shay, Tasha, what do you think?
Yeah, so my parents, they divorced when I was so 3, 4, somewhere around in there, so really young. And then my father remarried first,
Mm-hmm.
and I was about maybe 6 or 7, and then my mom remarried about, I guess maybe I was 9 or so. So blended family. And one thing I'll say, although their marriage didn't work out, what I learned and gleaned from that is they were better off apart than they were together.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, when I think about my step parents coming into the mix, um, they were great people, and they all worked together so that I could have, what I needed growing up. And so, you know, again, it didn't work out for them together, but apart it worked, and they were able to have a better relationship. So, for me, I learned, it was, we can love a lot of different people, right? In terms of, having, if it didn't work out with one, then they were able to,
Right.
find and work it out with someone else. And so that was beneficial for me. And then also, to your point about peer mentors, Brian and I look up to you and Ed, and we, you and I have had conversations
Mm-hmm.
in the past, and I know Brian and Ed have, and that's been really instrumental. And there's some other couples too that we reach out to and talk to, because sometimes when you're going through things, you're thinking you're the only one. And so because we didn't have those, specific role models in our parents per se, we have to figure out, gosh, how do I still get what I need and not feel like I'm going crazy because
Right.
maybe my husband and I aren't seeing, eye to eye. And so I'm thankful for you guys,
Aw.
certainly for writing this book and being very transparent, because I'm sure it's not easy, right? But I think to Karissa's point, yes, you absolutely are loved. And so the thought of, being judged, that should be certainly far from your mind. But I also want to point out, for those that may not have, that tribe of
Right.
folks, it's still okay, because ultimately, God is in control. And as long as
That's
we have him at the center,
Right.
we can make it through anything. And so
mm-hmm.
that is first and foremost. So yeah, anyway, go ahead, Tosh. I'm sorry. I get off
No,
on a
girl, you're
tangent.
speaking the truth. So a little bit about me. My parents were married at a very, very young age. They got married at 19. They divorced twice. Okay. So for the majority of my childhood and adulthood, they were married. And then after losing my brother, my baby brother was killed, my parents divorced for the very first time, and I was an adult, which is devastating to me and my brother. And then a couple years later, they got married again. And we were like, okay, this is forever. Like, we never looked at it as really like it was a divorce, right? And a year before my dad passed away, they divorced again, and then he remarried. Okay, so I'm tripping. I'm already upset. I'm heartbroken as an adult. But as an adult and being married, seeing and knowing what I know as a married person, understanding the challenges, I understand their divorce now. I can actually say that out loud. But during that time, I couldn't understand their divorce. But for me, it made me start talking to my husband a little bit more about certain things because I seen certain things going on. And it was not like I didn't know stuff was going on. I wasn't, blinded to it. But I try again, like you said, that was grown people's talk or grown people's business.
Right.
I kind of stayed away from it. But in my mind, I knew things were going on, right? Which I seen red flags. So then I look to those red flags in my relationship when it came to communication. Am I nagging? Am I being a certain kind of way? Are you being a certain kind? Why are you going out like that? What are you doing? Like, what's going on? So I always wanted to say, let's talk, let's talk, let's talk. And as we learned recently, our men can be vulnerable with other people, and they weren't so much with me. You know what I'm saying? So I couldn't really like get him to spill the guts until later in life. And then we started talking. In your book, Stacia, like, girl, even though I was, listening to you go through it during the time, and I knew she was going to write the book, and I was like, are you sure? Like I was there, in support of it. But like she knows, like I knew so much when she was her side of it. Let's just put it that way. I knew her side of it. I didn't really know Ed's side until the book came out, and it opened me up completely to the male point of view. So Stacia's my girl, but there is a point of view that made me look at my husband a little bit differently and open my mind up to things that could happen or things that have happened. You know what I'm saying? And made me understand a little bit better. So and just now I look back, even my book makes me reflect back on my parents, you know what I'm saying? What was going on with them and how they were brought up in the different childhood. I mean, it could be generational, and I understand that, but we can also break those curses as long as we communicate.
Ooh,
and
that's
we
a good word right there.
Communicate. I have my daughter who is a newlywed. Well, she's been married 3 years now, and I had her read it, and she brought it back to me, and she said, "This Stacia?" Yeah, you're Pisces, you're Pisces auntie.
That's right.
She was this is really deep though. She was like, this is deep. And she was like, what I got out of it is God was first. And that was, that was really big to me. So I agree with you, Chandrea, like, having that is important.
Absolutely.
Well, what's crazy is, so I have a list of questions, but every time we speak, I'm thinking of other things I want to ask instead. So, pardon me if I go a little bit off script, but so
go ahead.
We have, well, this is kind of in the question, but we have our, now we know by watching our parents, because even though my parents, and God, I hope she doesn't watch this, she's very sensitive, but, though they are married, they're still married, and I watched them go through it. Good and bad and otherwise. I remember as a girl and a teen saying, "Okay, I'm making a list. Not gonna do that. That's not acceptable. Okay, maybe I do that. Okay, so I have now set up expectations of what a marriage should be, right or wrong." I have my own expectations. So I walk into it thinking, this is how it's going to be. And that's just the way it is. And I'm Clevel's daughter. So I'm sweet, but I'm spicy. Okay. So if you get me on the wrong day, you know what I'm saying? So it's a challenge when you already go into a marriage, no matter how old you are, especially if you get married older. I got married older, although I've known Michael for a very long time. We didn't get married till 14 years ago, which was a long time now, but still, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I honestly thought maybe I would be that favorite aunt that never got married, to be honest with you, because I'm too independent. I just didn't know I could fish with somebody else. So how do you deal with that when you know you're going into it and based on all of your life experiences? How do you know the difference? Okay, so you go in with a thought of how it should be versus what it really is. What did you expect?
And most of us go in with, I mean, at least as far as I'm concerned, so many of us go into it with completely false expectations. So whether that is from reference relationships you've seen in person, whether that's if you're like Tasha and I, who still to this day watch daytime soap operas.
Do you?
Right? Or yes, different ones, but we both still watch soap operas. You know,
Team All My Children or Young and the Restless.
Okay,
I'm TH.
I don't know what's
Young
going
and the
on,
Restless.
but every now and then I'll pop in there and see what's happening on Young and the Restless.
Yeah, Young and the Restless. Young and the Restless. So, you know, and rom-coms and, you know, so we get a lot of input from a lot of different places as to what we think marriage should be like and what we should be like in a marriage. One of the places that I don't think we seek often enough, not truly, is what does God say we're supposed to do in marriage? Because we don't want to read that part. That's the hard part. That's the part about
Say that
forgiving.
again.
Yeah.
Right? That's the part about not putting yourself first.
Yeah.
Which we're all in this society, each and every single one of us is conditioned to do, is you make me happy. And if I'm not feeling it, I'm out. Or I'm going to treat you like crap, or, you know, or what have you. And we really, really had to learn. And we learned through this experience that it is not our spouse's job to make us happy.
Right.
It's just not. That's God's job. If you're a believer, that's God's job. To fulfill you completely is God's job, right? Now, your spouse can add to your happiness, should complement your happiness. I can say for sure that my husband probably makes me happy 80-90% of the time. I am lucky. But there's going to be that 10% where I'm going to be looking at him over my shoulder like, could I get away with murder? Because, I mean, the kids don't live here anymore. And so you really have to, and we write about this in the book, at least I do from my perspective, you have to be so careful about what you're not going to do and making vows to yourself, not marriage vows, but vows to yourself of what you are not going to accept and what you are not going to do and how you are not going to bend. First of all, I believe that God is going to put you through whatever he wants to put you through. And it's your job to figure out how to manage through it,
right,
and still stay faithful to what he's called you to do. So if he's called me to be married, just because my husband has upset me, even just because my husband did that one thing that I said, I would never stay with a guy who cheated on me. And here I am, you know, years and years later, fully healed and able to write about it. And that's because God said, just trust me. I know you don't, I know you can't see it, but trust me. I put you in this marriage for a reason. And so sometimes you have to take yourself out of it. I know that sounds strange, but you have to take yourself and your ego out of it in order for it to be successful.
What about you, lady?
I agree with you, Stacia. I feel like when we develop that relationship with our creator, we kind of remove ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Once you really connect, you got to know that you are a part of his process. You are a part of his world. You are just a physical person that is in a movie, and he's doing this. So if he wants you to get shot, if he wants you to be unfaithful, if he wants you to fail in some areas and do things, sometimes you can't just be so caught up in that was to punish you. Sometimes he takes you through these things because there's a lot of people putting you on a pedestal and looking to you before looking to him. You know what I'm saying? So he takes, you know, I used to hear this all the time. I work with a lot of celebrities, right? And I used to hear my dad and them used to say, all stars fall. Everything that you put above God will fail you at one time or another. And even like personal failures, like I feel like, oh shoot, this really happened to me. Oh my God, I'm embarrassed. I'm this way. But when I look at it, it wasn't even about me in the first place. It was because people were looking at me in this specific spot. And then God said, I'm gonna knock her down and I'm gonna build her back up. I'm gonna knock her down and I'm gonna build her back up until she gives me the glory. Right?
Yes.
Because I know Stacia Gowens, okay, the girl that I knew in high school, she's been cleansed. Because
Right?
I can say this for real. Like when I read about the things that actually happen, when I know the things that happen, and her reaction and how she's dealing with things now, like I'm telling you, that's God. That's not.
Oh yeah.
Like we know.
Like, oh yeah.
I'm straight up. I'm being real. That's not, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes you think about that and you look at people and you put people on a pedestal and you be like, because I would have been like, no, Stacia's about to go off. She's about to, this is not about to happen like this. And then when I see how she's transitioned, I know I'm looking at my girl, but I know God is working that. You know what I'm saying? I know he's working that.
Trust me, Tasha has had to pull me out of fights before, so she knows what she's speaking of.
So when we talk about this book and these things that happen, I knew God was there. I knew he was on the scene, and I don't know why he used this couple to do all of these things, but what they're doing right now, they're touching people's lives. You know what I'm saying? And they're giving the glory to where it's at. So I can't see too much more of this happening like that. He may be used in some other areas, but that's what he does. And we have to accept that. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the thing. Sometimes we get so caught up in ourselves, you know what I'm saying? And you don't see who's giving you all of this. And as long as you start recognizing that. And I mean, that's just, I mean, I know. I see it with my own two eyes.
The crazy thing is, when COVID first happened, and I was doing this, I wanted to do a video on perspectives of COVID. And the first couple, and I couldn't even explain to her why. The first couple that hopped in my brain that I wanted to ask, okay, how is COVID affecting you as a married couple? You're locked up inside each other. Am I echoing? You guys hear that?
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm trying to make sure I don't have anything else up. And so maybe make sure Facebook is off. So I couldn't really explain it, but that speaks to you sometimes are being a tool used by God. Because I remember when I reached out to you, I was like, oh, she hasn't talked to me in I don't know how long. I'm about to just ask her to do this video, but because it was so heavily on my heart, and I had the same message for the different type of subject matter I was dealing with. But for you and marriage, I wanted to talk to you. And then you said in your video about when you were talking about COVID that you all were planning to write a book. And then when it came out, I'm like, dang, that was fast. Like, she wasn't playing.
When I do decide to do something, it's getting done.
But you know what's so crazy is when you, that little teeny video that we did, to speak to you, the impact and sometimes the tool that you are to God. A friend of mine that I worked with years ago, her name was Nora Higgins. I'm saying her name. I hope that's okay. Nora Higgins. I did ask her to do a video too, but because she's into social work, she saw you and she made a comment about you really have some awesome friends, and she's like magnetic, and is she really writing a book? And I'm like, yeah, she is. But
Nora, if you're listening, I hope you bought the book.
I'll check in. But the thing is, your story and all of us, the things that we go through, as difficult, as jacked up as it seems at that time, like Tasha said, we're supposed to go through it. Those were already ordered for us, and you don't know who's watching.
That's right.
You don't know who's listening. You know, who need to read that book? Hell, I need to read the book. But we'll talk about that.
It's like that song, nothing is wasted, right? You go through things, nothing is wasted. God will use and it's amazing. And then the other thing I wanted to comment on, when you were first asking the question, Karissa, um, you were like, should. And so there's this, whenever we say should, I should be,
Mm.
right? Or my relationship should be, whenever there's a should, we need to ask ourselves, okay, so what's standard, right? What are we comparing to? I mean, we just need to remove that altogether. Altogether. We need to just remove that.
That makes sense, because that's what gets us into a lot of tricky spots, because then we get in our own heads, we create our own plans, and that's what dooms us all. It's not for us to make the plan for our life. Just saying, we don't want to get too deep, but just saying. So I did watch, and I didn't want to, I'm mentioning it because I know that you all, and I watched Chandra, your husband, in the video with Ed and Kevin.
Yeah.
And I was very moved by how vulnerable they were. And they did touch on a little bit. Am I echoing again? What is it? Slick talking?
Oh, Lord. Here we go.
So
let's get into it.
Don't play.
So let's interpret. Okay, so let me just say, oh man, Shay just dropped off. Hopefully she'll be back. She's in her car, so hopefully she'll be back. Maybe she just got disconnected, because I was going to have her start. So yes, it was funny because it was her husband who brought it up first, and he said,
very animated about it.
Yeah, he was like, because my husband, Chandra she'll just come to me and she'll just be talking all kinds of slick. And for those of you who are like, what the heck is slick? It's just, we can be very quick-witted and sharp-tongued, let's just say. Again, as smart, independent women. And I think that it was really important that they addressed that, though, because that was for Ed. That was sort of how we found ourselves how he found himself in his predicament in the first place, was because I am opinionated. I don't know how to bite my tongue, right? At the time, I was less mature, so I didn't know how to, everything doesn't have to be said. Sometimes just shut your mouth. No, if I think it, you're going to hear it. And I'm not going to put any sweetener on it either. You're just going to get it. So that's their slick talk. But it was funny because, and they didn't rehearse or anything before that podcast, and each one of them said the same thing. Well, my wife could talk to me slick too. And for me, and it was funny because we were like, oh, we're gonna have to address that. But for me, I did have to learn that it wasn't getting me what I needed.
Yeah.
So I could say it, but it's not going to make him understand me any better. It's not going to make him feel any better about himself. It's not going to affirm him. It's not going to affirm our relationship. And so even if it were something that happened to be true, do I have to say it? No, I don't really have to say it. So I had to learn myself to pull back on some of that. I even had to pull back on, I grew up with my mom and my sister, so all girls. Girls yell at each other, scream at each other, slam doors, whatever. It's no big deal. For him, that was a big trigger. He was his mother's only child. She suffered from mental health challenges. So for him, if there were yelling and screaming and slamming of doors, he could lose his home or, be moving into a shelter. And so that was an environmental trigger for him. I don't even think he could identify it at the time. But after I learned, when I storm out the door and drive off out of the driveway, I'll be back. It's no big deal. But for him, that really, really impacted him. And he's not the kind to then tell me about it when I get back, because he doesn't want to upset me again and go through the whole thing all over again. And so what he did was shove it all down, right? Not say anything. And then you get someone talking slick in a different kind of way who's like, well, I would never do that to you. I think you're wonderful. You pick up the dry cleaning. Oh, you pick up the kids from school. You go to their games. You cook dinner. wow, you're such a great guy. I mean, if you were my guy, I would never do any of that to you, right? Which is, of course, very easy to say. You don't live with him. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that all of that is to say, we do play a part in creating and cultivating the environment that we do want to exist in.
Mhm.
And so it's up to us to sometimes just pull back and say, you know what, I don't need to say that right now. And at the end of the day, it's not going to hurt. um, and that's one of the other things I wanted to address. And Tasha, I'd love to hear your comments on this too. Is, I hear all the time, well, that's because men aren't good communicators, but women are really good communicators. And I'm like, well, not necessarily.
Mhm.
Women talk a lot. That doesn't mean you're a good communicator, because a communicator listens and hears and adapts to what they're listening to and hearing. And
Mhm.
so if you're just a woman who thinks because you say a lot of words and you seemingly get your way, I would just caution you,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of guys out there like Ed who they're not going to say it. They're not going to say anything to you because they don't want to hear you anymore. Um, but you're really not communicating. You're just talking.
Right. Just so you guys know, Chandria is trying to get back in.
Oh,
I don't
she
know.
is. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
trying to
Okay.
get back in, but I'll go ahead and answer. Stacia,
Thank you.
hey.
I don't
Yay.
think the devil. God wanted me to really respond to that question.
Yes,
Apparently,
he did. Yes, he did.
That's okay, Shay. I started. Tasha's going now, so you'll get your mind right.
Absolutely. We're gonna pray on it first, right?
all right. We'll pray on it.
So, you hit it right. It's communication. Yeah, I was really bad. I said things that I knew that would hurt Kevin. And in that podcast you mentioned, they talked about being vulnerable and how the wives and the husbands, we know each other better than anyone else in the world. You know what I'm saying? We can hurt each other more than anyone else in the world because we've been vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? Kevin knows my ugly days. I know his, right? And so sometimes I would take advantage of that, and I would say things that would pretty much dog him out. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I knew it was going to hurt. It was because I was hurting though. And didn't think about it until later. And then, he'll pull me down and we'll talk. And then he'll say, this is what you said. And I'm going to tell you straight up, and you guys may be able to relate to this. Sometimes I didn't think I said it like I said it.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
mentally,
Of
I
course.
was just saying like, oh, blah, 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 blah. But then when he reiterated, when he says it back to me, I'm like, dang, that was kind of messed up. I probably shouldn't have did that, but it takes him to, and I have to say he is better at communication now than he ever has been. Like the pandemic has really saved my marriage. Okay. Because my husband traveled a lot with work. I traveled a lot. And so us actually going through this year, for the first 2 months, we were ready to kill each other. And then we just started to communicate a little bit more and more and just started taking our time. I started to listen more, not just with my ears, but with my eyes. You know what I'm saying? And seeing that he needs his shoulders rubbed, or him seeing I need my feet rubbed, or I need to hear a compliment, or I need to feel this way. So we started to, instead of talking slick with it, I would bite my tongue a little bit more because I have to consider everything that's going on. We do that with our friends. I'm not going to call my friend when she's down and out and be like, you need to be blah, 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 blah. I'm going to come at her and I'm going to comfort her. Even though I'm mad, I could be very mad, but I know she needs comfort right now. Why aren't we like that with our husbands or our spouses? And that was just a lesson learned. But yeah, they can get slick too, but we just slicker.
Right?
Words, you know what I'm saying? But but I've learned to look at that a little bit differently now, and communicate a little bit better. So, Chandria.
Yeah, so while I was backstage, I got a chance to hear most of what you guys were sharing. And, Stacia, Brian is very much like Ed. Their personalities are very similar. And yeah, I know I can be very slick with the tongue. I do know that. And over the years, I have recognized that because, you know, there have been times where I think you said it, Tasha, you know, if I'm hurt, I want him to feel that hurt too. And if I'm not happy, then, you know, I don't want him to be happy. And so just throughout our relationship and maturing, a lot of that has changed. And for me personally, I've had to learn ways to make sure I show my husband that I respect him. That's been something that he has said time and time again. You know, I just feel like you don't respect me,
so important.
right? And it is important, absolutely, because, you know, let's be clear, we have some amazing husbands.
We do. We do.
You know, they are great providers, great fathers. And, you know, the 10% of the time where we might have that conflict,
right,
it's nothing compared to the 90% of the time where it's just, you know, it's amazing.
Smooth sailing,
so
yeah.
I just, you know, I'm still growing. You know, I still get slick from time to time. And so just, you know, help me. We can be accountability sisters.
We're all, yeah, that's right. This is the accountability circle for the slick talking sisters.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is so funny. My mom, she says, well, I listened to that, and honey, now I know he right, because you get slick with the tongue. He's so right.
Not your mama. If your mama says it, then you know it's true.
You know it's true. I can't argue. All I can do is ask for forgiveness and grace.
That's right. That's right.
You know what? And I think it's, for me, the reason why I get slick is because at that moment, that's the tool that works the best. And I'm so good at it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the tool that works the best. And I'm so good at it. And I dare you to say one more thing.
Right.
Just say one more thing. You want more of this? You know what I'm saying? Right. So it's like, it's just, that's the thing that works, that we have to find new ways, though. We just have to find new ways to do it, because that's not, and it's just not productive.
Yeah.
But, knowing when to talk to your husband. Like, I will talk to you about this briefly, Stacia, early on in our marriage, because I'm a talker, you know what I'm saying? And he is not. Like, he's like, you know, he likes to take care of business, and he doesn't really need to do a lot of chitter chatter about it. You know what I'm saying? Not so much. Like, you know, like, get to the point, kind of. So, which I guess makes sense. But when I am having a great day or fantastic day, I want to share it with you right now.
Yeah.
Not an hour from now when I'm like, I want to come in and I want to talk to you right now. And it took me a lot of years to respect or get that. I had to respect that. That's not how he's gonna roll. So he finally, and it took, I'm like, why did it take us like 5 years to have this conversation for him to say, Karissa? So how I like it is when I come home, give me like an hour.
Give me a minute, right?
Yeah. Give me an hour, you know, and don't be offended. I'm going into this room, I'm closing the door. I just like to kind of, you know, defrag. Right. Just give me some, because otherwise I am like, yip. And I have to look at myself like, whoa, that's what it sounds like. You know what I mean? That's not cool, but it's also knowing when to have a conversation with your spouse, whether it's something serious or little, just like respecting that fact that.
Well, and I think it's so important to have those kinds of conversations and set up constructs for you that work for you at whatever point you are in marriage, because it depends if you have small kids at home versus you don't have kids at home and things like that. But it's important to have these conversations when things are going well, not when things have fallen off the rails. And if I had to do some things over again, because there's probably a few things I would do differently, is to build the foundation of communication when things are going well. Let's talk about how we can set up, you know, when our kids were younger, we had to have an hour meeting every week It was always on the weekend, but just to talk logistics, because there's a whole bunch of stuff coming up next week. So who's going to go to the grocery store? Who's going to meal prep? Who's going to go take the kids to this game? Like for that stuff, so that we could have a date night where we weren't talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
We were talking about each other and things like this, and trying to uncover more about each other. Because, and I saw Claudia said in the comments, to give ourselves a little bit of a break because we were married. Some of us married very young. And, you know, so we grew up together. We grew up with our husbands because, you know, I literally graduated from college, moved with Ed to Pennsylvania, got engaged, got married a year later. So I think about that sometimes, and I think my son has graduated from college. He lives on his own now. If that were me, I would be living with his father right now, right? So I don't have that, any of that like alone time in the middle for me to have even figured out who the heck I was.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really important, and one thing that I think we do better now is to have some of those conversations when things are going well. And that's one of the things I really highly suggest to people too. Go to counseling. I don't care who you are.
Right.
If you're married, go to counseling. If things are like on a rocket trajectory and you guys are doing awesome 95% of the time, go to counseling. Figure out, why are we like this? How did we get here? Right? So that you can make those things habits in your marriage. Don't just wait until things fall apart. But for sure, if things have fallen apart, go to counseling. And I think I was the one that didn't want to go to counseling. Honestly, Ed was like, please let me. Now, of course, he's the one that messed up. So at first, at least. So he's like, well, come on, let's go, please. Because he's thinking I'll do anything to save my marriage, which is great, obviously. And I didn't really want to go at first. And reluctantly, I did what they asked me to do. I didn't really want to do it. But now looking back on it, it was so healthy, because if you've driven your relationship into a ditch, you cannot get it out. You can't get it out. And here's another thing. Unless one of your peer, relationships, unless they're a counselor, they can't get you out either.
They can't. Yeah.
They don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So you sitting around here, I used to say that to my kids all the time when they would say, well, one of my friends told me, I'm like, your little friends don't know nothing. Now, in this circumstance, like in this kind of a circumstance, if you're married and you're doing infidelity, your little friends don't know nothing, even if they've been through it. Because it's your marriage and your relationship, and it's different. And so you have to have someone who can give you the right tools and hold you accountable to doing the work in order to pull yourself out. So I'm just a big proponent of that now. When you're doing well, go to counseling. When you're not doing well, go to counseling. Go to counseling.
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, one thing that I learned from you in our communication, because obviously we've all been through some things, but Stacia, you had brought to my relationship using a safe word in communication. When you told me that, I started to implement that in my relationship too. And I sat Kevin down and I said, okay, well, when we need to communicate and it's just crazy and we need to be leveled, let's just say this safe word. Let's create our safe word. So then we know, like, this is where we need to really be serious. And this is something that's meaningful to me, or vice versa. So when we say that safe word, that meant stop all the other stuff and come together and communicate on this level. So that was a big, just, friendship to friendship. You were just going through things. I was going through things and you told me that. And I took that. That was a big takeaway for me. Go ahead, Chandria.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add, just reiterate just the importance of counseling. I think all too often, especially in the Black community, we tend to shy away from getting any type of help, any type of counseling, therapy, any of that. And we need to stop that. And absolutely, when things are going well, it's important to continue to build up, kind of like that bank account, right? Put those deposits in there so that when you do go through something, you have something to draw from. If it's completely empty, oh boy, and then you absolutely foundationally need to have, Christ at the center and you need to pray, but then there's the whole other camp of folks that are like, well, we'll just pray about it, and that's
Right.
fine, but you got to take some action.
That's right.
You got to pray and take some action
And do something, right?
and do
Because
something.
I have heard, and I know you guys have too. You know, people will tell you, "Well, God said," and you looking at them like, "I know God didn't say." and
Right.
and here's something else. You can convince yourself
What God said.
that God is saying something to you that
Hello.
He is
Right.
not.
Hello.
Okay, and I mean, I put it in the book, so I can say it that when I was having my affair, and mine was like a full-on relationship. This wasn't no just dalliance, okay? And I had gotten to the point that I convinced myself
Yeah.
God wanted me to have this.
I read that, and yeah,
He gave this to me,
Right.
and I really had this conversation when the night that I told Ed, because I was having this little debate back and forth with God, like, you gave this to me.
Right.
I'm not giving it back.
Right. And we know that's not biblically correct, right?
Of course. Of course. But that's why I say, like, to your point about the just pray, is people, we can convince ourselves that it's God, and we know it's not, but we convince ourselves it is because we want it to be.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So, well, since you brought it up, Stacia, because I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you brought it up, so how did that conversation? I mean, how
did I bust on myself?
Yeah, because I read how it led up, and you were like thinking about now is the time. I was thinking now is the time. In my heart, I was thinking that when I read the book. I said, Stacia, now is not the time. That's what I said to myself.
Don't do it, girl. Don't do it. You know what?
So tell me about that.
Yeah, that's another one of those. I have different moments. I have always been a strong-willed person, child, everything. My parents, if they were on the phone, would nod vehemently. And I was a well-mannered child. Like, I behaved, and I did well in school and things like that. So I wouldn't say I was disobedient necessarily, but I was headstrong. So if I did want to do something, and it required sneaking out of the house, I would do that, right? And so let's just say, yeah, exactly. Well, that's because I was sneaking out the house with her. Where do you think I was going?
She was with you, right?
Yeah, but I do believe that obedience and that word, even just that word, is a struggle for most of us, right? And so let me tell you a really quick story. At our wedding, we had two pastors, my home pastor, and then our pastor came from the state that we lived in at the time. And we had the chance to go over with my home pastor the fact that Stacia did not want obey in her vows. Don't say the word obey. No. No. Dogs obey. I don't obey. And so, and I had really been struggling with it, like just, anyway, I was like, Pastor Reed, please, I don't want obey. So by the time, and he agreed, by the time we got to that part of the vows, it was the other pastor. It was him reading. Well, I hadn't told Pastor Johnson I didn't want obey. He said obey. And I am standing in front of this church, y'all, with, 200 people going, what am I going to do? Because I can't, I'm finna lie to God in front of all these people because I am not obeying anybody. So all of that is to say that word just in and of itself stirs something in you. So how did I get to that moment? I was obedient, even though I didn't want to be. And so I think it's really critical sometimes just to be obedient until your attitude can catch up with it. And so if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have said that night. And to be honest, I don't know if and when I ever would have. And it's critical to me that it did happen when it did, because we could immediately go and talk to two people we trusted, because they had mini coaching sessions with the pastor and his wife, who had just revealed that they had dealt with infidelity. in this couples counseling. So who better to talk to?
Yeah.
And kind of, you know, at least Ed could identify with him because in their situation, she had been unfaithful as well. And so I knew I had to do it then. And I did. It was painful. Nobody wants to see their husband cry. I mean, and my husband is just jovial and so loving. And even though he had hurt me, I mean, how interesting is that, right? Even though I had screamed and cried and been bloody eyed, you know, bloodshot red eyes and howled at the moon for a better part of a year after what he had done to me, that broke my heart.
Yeah.
And but I knew I had to do it in order to actually, because I wouldn't have I'm just gonna be honest, I wouldn't have stopped myself. And so that's what needed to be done. And fortunately for me, you know, obviously he's not a screamer yeller, so he didn't scream or yell. He literally did just sit there and cry, which was almost worse. But then he said, well, you know, I mean, you stuck with me. Of course, I'm here and we'll work our way through it.
You guys are so awesome. See, that's why I asked you to do that, because that's so awesome. But you know what? It's the mature, Christ-driven. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're right. It is about obedience, and not all of us have it in us to do that because we bring things back to ourselves. Like it's all about us, but it's not, because it's the two of you.
That's right.
Sometimes you
And
have
three.
Right.
God is in that
three.
Right.
And
you know,
you were saying obey to God. You wasn't saying obey to Ed. You were saying obey to God. He just made you obey him.
But I wasn't mature enough then because I was 24 years old.
Exactly.
So I was not mature enough then to really do that. And you know, now if people ask, well, even a while ago, if people would say to me, well, would you say your husband's the head of the household? I'm like, well, yeah. And one of our girlfriends, a really good friend of ours, goes, what? I mean, I can't imagine you would say that, because she knows me and she knows I'm smart and independent. And I'm like, well, first of all, he's pretty darn good at the household, but I trust that even if he doesn't get it right all the time, because I don't get it right all the time, that he does want to honor God, and he does want to honor his vows, and he does want to do what God tells him his job to do as a husband. That is why I can say, yes, he's the head of my household with no compunction. Now, if you're married to a fool, as our pastor now would say, if you're married to a fool, you know, he's your fool. You married him. So you don't get to just not, you know, submit or not say that he's the head of the household because he happens to be a fool. You're the one that married him. So you're going to have to figure it out. Like, you're going to have to figure out. And that does require a lot of prayer.
Help the mate, you know, just, but, you know, I feel you. So fun thing. I just, not to switch gears, but I'm switching gears. So the music, what? So the music was the narrator of the story.
Yes.
I enjoyed it so much, and I could relate. In fact, I found myself thinking whenever I was starting a chapter, I would think, what was I doing when this song came out? You know what I mean? Like, you doing it? I was like, and so you guys both have a love of music. So did you decide together collectively on it? And it so matched each subject matter, but
I know that's because we like a lot of different kind of music. I was like, oh, we could find a song probably for everything. So Ed would say this, so it's okay for me to say it. It's definitely, that was my brainchild, because I was just struggling with, like, I do not want to write a boring ho-hum, you know, book that people are going to be like, oh, you're so preachy and you're so, you know. I thought what connects most people is music.
Yes.
In some way, shape, or form. Obviously, you can tell I love 80s, 90s, R&B, hip hop mostly, but
country too. Stacia know every song. You can drive in the car with her. You know every song on every channel. Like, no lie, she knows every song from every genre, from every era. Like, I'd be like, you know, I might know one or two where she know the real words. Like, you know how some people know the real words. Like, Yo, there has to be a TV show for her to get on and win. Like,
That's so
there
funny.
is all the words.
Right. And now I don't know the year. I might not even know the artist. I don't know. And I would be so much smarter, y'all, if I didn't have all these lyrics stuck in my head. But that's where I thought, at least people can kind of identify and connect with music. And then we thought about having the kind of the story from my perspective, from his perspective, because it was very different, obviously, and then what our collective learnings were. So, and then from that point, it was like, okay, well, then let's think about, do we do it chronologically? Okay, sort of did it chronologically. And then the songs just kind of flowed from there. I wouldn't say it was hard to select songs. It was hard to not select certain songs because it was like, oh, but I really like that one too.
So this is a question for all you ladies. And we kind of maybe touched on this, but so how do you hold your partner up? How do you hold your, because from what I gather, we've got solid partners who are holding us up. We're strong women, and they are there unconditionally. What is it, or what can we say to some of the ladies out here? How do you hold your partner up? And it could be, it can mean a few things, but what do you say?
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember something. I think maybe Pastor Johnson said this in Indy, Chandria. I don't remember if it was him or another pastor that was like, you don't tell him he look good every day, somebody else will. So that's easy. That part's easy, right? Is you ain't going out this house without you knowing I think you are the bomb.com.
Right.
You look good. And don't let men fool you. They want to hear it as much as we want to hear
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
So I make sure to do that. And then, I think all of our husbands are also, they have pretty demanding jobs and they're good at their jobs. They're good at what they do. And so we have to recognize, as much as sometimes we feel like we might get beat up in the workplace, so do they.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got to be their safe space to be like, you can complain about anything. And I've got your back. Or, do you need, and Ed does ask me sometimes, he's like, well, how would you deal with this? How would you, you've been managing people longer than me. How would you handle this? And so just being, willing to give of yourself. I think that's really important too. And then, like you said earlier, Karissa, if they happen to be the kind that needs a break, or when it's football season, if they want to watch football all day, I don't care. Fine. I may watch it with you. I may not. But I don't complain about it. I just let you do it.
Right. Yeah. In addition to what Stacia has just shared, I try to consistently pray for Bryant, and something that I used to do that I haven't really done as well here lately is just asking him, how can I serve you better, right? Which
Great
is a
question.
really profound question, right? Because if we are both serving each other, now mind you, our happiness isn't, my happiness isn't in him and vice versa. But if we are serving each other,
that'll blow your happiness right up. Right. Absolutely.
So it's that question. And then I am trying to be more intentional about just studying my husband. We've been married for coming on in July 18 years, and seasons change. People we change, we grow, and so what I may have done 4 years ago may not necessarily work right now. So we constantly need to be studying our mate. And so I'm just trying to be more intentional about that. Definitely, I forget who said, I think maybe you, Tasha, you were talking about, this pandemic has been a blessing in a number of ways for your marriage. And I feel the same way. It has been a blessing, and I've learned a hell of a lot about me personally, just coming out of a depression. And I'm so thankful for my husband. He is perfect for me. He may not be perfect, but he is perfect for me. And so I'm thankful for him. And so I just want to make sure that I am telling him that, because it's real easy for us to get caught up in the, you know, just the busyness of the day or what the kids are
Right.
doing, where we forget to say how we feel and how we are appreciative. And so, yeah, so basically I'm trying to study him more. There's things that he likes that I don't necessarily, care for. Like he's big into, sci-fi and
Wow.
Star Wars
So
and all of
excited.
those things. And me, not so much, but I'll sit and watch it with them. Now, football, oh yeah, you best believe I'm all up in there watching with him with the
Yeah.
wings, the pizza, and the beer, or whatever. That's me.
I like
So
that
yeah.
part.
So for me, I used to be about the golden rule where you treat others the way you want to be treated. And
Mhm.
I've switched. Now I'm about the platinum rule where
Yeah.
treat others the way they want and need to be treated.
Mhm.
So just because I like it doesn't necessarily mean he likes it. So I really want to know what he likes. You know what I'm saying? So just like you said, Chandria, studying him and knowing what he likes. He likes anime. I don't, but he loves anime. You know what I'm saying? So I watch anime with him sometimes, at least learn the characters a little bit so I can have a conversation with him sometime. He loves hiking. He's created that space for me to enjoy hiking now. It wasn't my thing. I get tired. Shoot, that hurt. That's painful. But I go out there and hike with him. At least he might hike every day, but I might do it twice a week with him. It's for the betterment of us. And I take those time out to communicate with him and just listen to him a little bit more. And like I said, not just listening with my ears, but I'm listening more with my eyes and I'm seeing the things that he's doing. And we talked about this too, about, where they come from. I engage a lot with his mom. I engage with his family. And sometimes they tell me things that he's never told me before. And it kind of fills in some gaps, where, I wonder this or I wonder that. Recently, we just went back to Indianapolis, Indiana. Now that's where Kevin's born. He was born in Indiana. So I was like, take me to your hood, take me to where you were. And we went and I was like, take me out of here, get me out of here now. No, I'm joking. But it filled some gaps about his childhood because he was there until third grade that he would always tell me the stories, but now I was able to see those things, so listening, because I know I can talk and I can talk about me and my family and, we're out here in Vegas around my family, but knowing more about his, even if it's distant cousins and other people, I want to know everything about him, and I want to dig deeper. And even though we've been together for almost 26 years, it's like, it is 26 years. Gosh, 26 years. I feel like there's still more to know. And he's still growing and I'm still growing. Right. You know what I'm saying? So there's levels to marriage, there's levels to maturity. And I really feel like as we grow into this approaching 50 age, that's a different space. You know what I'm saying? Than when we were approaching 40, 30, or even 20. So just continue to grow with each other and know that you're going to go through changes. Our tribes change. Mine don't. I got my
You ain't
tribe.
never getting rid of me.
Yeah, but I'm saying though, that's important too. Like, who's he hanging around with? Who's he communicating with? That's important. If you don't have someone to sharpen your knives with, like, I want to know who your friends are, who you kicking it with. I love that he kicks it with Ed when he's in Dallas, or Ryan or whatever. Those are my sisters' husbands that he's kicking it with. He knows Michael. Michael grew up with us. Michael was right there in the beginning of me and Kevin. You know what I'm saying? So like, knowing the people that is around him, that helps me see where he's at in life. You know what I'm saying? Because you attract what you're around. And I noticed with him, he's a life coach now, so he's coaching and he's talking more about life to other people, and I'm looking at him learning and teaching at the same time, and it's so sexy to me.
Hey, yes.
That is so sexy to me.
Yes.
I love it.
Well, I just have to say, we're going to hop off in a minute, but this was number one. I think we encouraged. I think we did inspire, and I think we enlightened, and that's what we want to continue to do for each other. It's a sisterhood. You know what I'm saying? And I think we need more of it. And I feel like my heart is. I'm so corny. It's like a butterfly right now. I'm just like so happy. I'm like, you know what I mean? This is a topic. I think maybe I've been itching to talk about this too, because just because I'm a woman and I'm married. But you wrote about it and it was so relatable. And I just want to thank you for doing that. I'm just want to thank you for writing this. I mean, I want my daughter to read this too.
Yes.
You know, she's a young married woman. So I want her to, and she's remarrying her ex-husband.
Just like Tasha's parents.
Next week. Yep. So, but yeah, I'm gonna have to get her one of these. But I think, was I supposed to share that? I'm a sharer. I had to stop sharing.
Oh well.
I just love that. I love to see the sisterhood in you all. I'm seeing right now as I'm talking to you, and I think that's there's got to be more of that, and I think continue to be an example of that. You know, so your daughters and the other young ladies are seeing how you communicate with each other when things are tricky for us. You're right. You need a tribe.
Yeah.
You do.
And how to not be jealous of each other. Like, you know, I am as happy if one of these ladies wins as if I did it myself.
Exactly.
Right? Chandria is a boss at everything. But when Chandria did a figure competition, listen, ain't no way in the world I could have been as disciplined as Chandria. I give all hail and all praise to my little sister because I couldn't have done it. And I was out there in the crowd screaming, just as happy for her as if I had done all the work myself. You know, same with Tasha. It's like there's no jealousy. It's all what Tasha said though, is like, but I can learn from them. Like I want to be around them because I can learn something from them. And I know I'll have a good time while I'm doing it. And so I think it is important. I think it's an art that's been lost on our kids. I know that because my daughter who's 21 says that to me. She goes, I don't understand. You still friends from high school? Like, you know, y'all still get along and you go on trip. Like you're really friends. You still go on trips. You still talk to each other.
I'm not a stalker, okay? I'm not a stalker. However, I love to see when I'm like waiting for y'all's next trip so I can see the next.
So are we?
You know what I mean? Like, I love to see it, but I love that about our class, though. I think everybody's very supportive of each other, then whoever you bring into your tribe. So you brought Chandra, and you just continue that. You just continue on with that. And so whenever I see Tasha or Stacia doing something great, I get excited, and then I go run show Michael, and Michael's not big on social media, and he's hilarious. The man probably don't need to be on social media, you know. But and he's always like, "Oh, Tasha's my girl. Oh my God, she's doing it." I'm like, "I know she's doing it, right?" Oh, so we get like so excited to see what people are doing, and we're so blessed to just say that we know you. You know, we're so blessed to know that you are. Although you've grown, you still have a lot of love to give to others outside of your tribe. So Stacia, Tasha, Chandra, thank you for being.
Thank you.
You know,
thank you, Karissa. This was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And keep doing it. Keep doing it. Like, I mean, I feel like that's the gift that keeps giving. You know, we are all artistic in our own ways, and we're all blessed with different gifts. And I think just sharing, you know, authentically sharing is really important, because so people don't always. They think sometimes we're perfect. They think, oh, life is play and this, you know, and Stacia shared, I shared, like, it's not always perfect. You know what I'm saying? But it's his plan.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So we can't say it's not perfect, because it's perfectly his plan.
His plan.
Absolutely. And his plan is always the best plan.
That's
exactly. But
if we would just follow it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, there'll have to be other times. Stacia's going to write another book.
Yes, yes.
Put it out there. I might write one too.
Listen. Now with my husband, he done already said he is one and done, sister. One and done.
Tash wrote a book, but I wasn't doing this yet. Tash already wrote
yes. Yes. Absolutely. No,
we got some collabos in the background. Don't tell us, but we got some collabos coming.
Yeah.
Collabo, yes. Independent book, no. But we do, Ed and I'm gonna see if I can noodle him, because I said, we should really try to figure out not how to be counselors, because we're not counselors, but how to be like couples coaches. How do you come alongside people and help give them some of the tools, so that they don't fall into the rut. But we'll see. I don't know.
I
kind of just looked at me.
Yes.
I see that too.
You gotta do it. Oh, you're done. You're doing it. Put it out there.
To say it. Usually turns into a couple coaching process. We're happening.
That's it.
Couples retreats.
Couples retreat. I was just thinking.
Yeah. I'll be there.
You feel me? We'll have Chandria, you gonna design all the workouts for the
I got you.
I don't think we want to invite the Beastmaster. That's a little too, that's not retreatish, right? That's like boot camp. It's a little different. So, but I love you ladies. I love you ladies. I really appreciate you spending a part of your Friday having this discussion, because Karissa was like, oh, let's do this. I'm like, we can't do this without my girls. Like, we need other people's perspectives. And so I'm so happy for you guys. You guys are always supportive of everything that we do. So I love y'all.
Love you.
Look at Karissa.
I'm so glad Shan lets me call you sis, and she lets me share you.
Oh yeah. Well, sometimes I think she wants to share me. Like, somebody else take her. Take my sister, please. But we'll have to do it again sometime soon.
Yeah. So I'm going to end this live, but hold on. After I end, you stay right there. So thank you, and we'll see you the next time.
Bye. Me with my sparkling water. So I could. Oh, she's gone. How'd she leave?
I think she'll come back when
we're still live.
Oh yeah, we are.
Still live. Oh Lord.
Hey Claudia. Hey Dee. Hey Lenora. All the people that are in the chat.
I don't know how to listen. Okay, so I'm technically challenged.
Oh Lord. You don't know how to end the live?
How to end it.
Maybe I know I could leave the end
button, but I don't want you guys to leave.
What did you say you see?
I see sometimes leave studio, but that might be taking us all off. I don't know.
End it. But anyway, I will get with you all the next time. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Have a good weekend, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Take care.